the foundational principle behind the Trump budget is he needs to cut taxes on the wealthy and on corporations because that's how you grow the economy. And then those job creators will create great jobs for everybody else. So to address that issue, since none of us are super wealthy, we went to our plutocratic overlord, Nick Hanauer, not quite a billionaire, but billionaire-ish, to get his take on the Trump budget and what it does for rich people like him and ordinary, not so important people like us. So, Nick, as a guy who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, I assume you're pretty thrilled about the Trump budget.
It is a thing to behold from my point of view. Republicans used to be slightly better about hiding this from people, but I think Trump's great challenge is that fundamentally he's an incredibly stupid person. So he and his merry band of miscreants struggle to hide their true intentions in the same way that the Republicans that preceded him were able to do.
But he was going to make America great again. Finally, somebody was going to drain the swamp and fight Wall Street and defend working people. You don't think that $1 trillion tax cut for millionaires and billionaires that throws 23 million people off of healthcare, that's not draining the swamp?
I think it's filling the swamp up with buckets of money for rich people. I mean, the swamp used to have like fetid water in it. Now it's gobs of money. It's quite an astounding thing politically to run on a relatively populist platform and then to enact or attempt to enact policies that clearly only benefit the richest people in society. People are creatures of emotion, and I know that his core supporters, will do anything to maintain their emotional connection to him and their support of his policies, irrespective of what the evidence suggests. But eventually, those feelings will collide with reality, and a huge proportion of the 23 million people who are going to lose healthcare are Trump supporters. And, one has to believe that eventually it'll make them angry. And that the scary thing is that those folks started out angry.
Yeah, that's how we got Trump.
That's right. And our politics today is uncivil and unconstructive because so many people in the country are angry. I think we've seen nothing yet. I think it's going to get much, much worse.
So we understand somewhat why these Trump supporters vote for him. They wanted change. They weren't hearing a coherent and compelling message from the Democrats. They've been screwed over for decades. Things are only getting worse. At least Trump was promising something, even if they didn't believe he would deliver. And on the trickle down side, they've been taught this again for decades that, you got to cut taxes on the rich to get the growth that'll create the jobs and the higher wages, etc. But what about your crowd, your fellow super rich people? Do they still buy into this, that you need to cut taxes on corporations and the wealthy in order to grow the economy and fix the inequality problem that we have?
Yeah, I mean, some people clearly do, and some people don't. The most powerful force in human affairs is the need to self-justify. And if you want your taxes to be low, it's pretty easy to make up a story for yourself that makes tax cuts for rich people morally and economically sensible and appropriate. And there's obviously clearly a ton of people and many people in my set who continue to believe and want to believe that tax cuts are how we create growth, and that rich people like them are job creators, and that the more money they have, the more jobs they'll create, and all this other ridiculous nonsense. Some people clearly don't believe it, and are part of the crowd fighting against some of this silliness. But the Republican Party is so wed to the big donors who simply don't care really about anything but tax cuts, that they're trapped. And, their whole healthcare approach is simply a huge tax cut for rich people masquerading as healthcare. That's really all it is. And there's a whole ton of people who will benefit from that and who prefer it.
I'm trying to figure it out. How much of it is just selfish cynicism, and how much of it is people being wrong about how the economy works? And you can make a distinction. Your crowd, you're mostly with the venture capitalist, technology, innovation side. There's also the Wall Street side of the economy, and I know there's a difference in the way they approach this. I mean, cynicism or stupidity?
I'm no psychologist, so I can't really tell. But a lot of people want to believe that the economy depends on them, and the better they do, the better everyone else will do. And certainly rich people desperately want to believe that because it's morally self-justifying. And, it's a great conundrum, but it's just clearly not true that the richer the rich get, the better off everyone else will be. And, it just takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of resolve to try to fight against those stories and narratives.
So there's that ideological side, the old trickle-down school, which we're trying to tear down. And then I think there's also this real animosity towards the poor. Paul Ryan talks about how our social safety net creates I think it's a quote, a hammock of dependency. And, we're very pro-hammock in this office, as well as pro-safety net. I mean, what is it going to take to get those Trump voters, to get the public to understand that it's not just that their policies are counter to their interests, but they're actually kind of despised by these people they're electing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people are super tribal and see the world as us and them, and no one more typifies that than Paul Ryan. Sort of the construct of which he looks at the world is, this idea of makers and takers, that there are a few of us who are noble and worthy and moral and hardworking, and the rest of everybody else is sort of, a parasite and sucking off the teat of the government or whatever it is. And of course, it's just a nutty way to conceptualize, a human society. It's certainly not true. And if you were to add up who's making and who's taking, clearly the rich are taking way more than they're making. And, the subsidies that wealthy people get, and the tax exemptions and the advantages and so on and so forth, it's just so staggering and amount to so much as a percentage of GDP of the economy relative to the support that we give, people at the bottom of the economic pyramid, that it's quite staggering. And there's no economic rhyme or reason to any of this. It's just a moral stance about people who matter and people who don't. And, that's the way he sees the world. He sees it as a zero-sum world of makers and takers. And that's just sort of factually not true. It is, or it should be, a positive-sum world of sellers and buyers. And all of us, hopefully, are both sellers and buyers. But we certainly want more buyers and more sellers. And when you have that, and when you invest in the country in that way, everything gets better for everybody.